if you've been in my presentations before and you see I'm missing something, Montgomery's not with me today. I'm not doing anything in Python, so, and the ones that never seen my presentation before, well, I usually have a Python with me because most of my presentations are in Python. Okay, basically, talk about COTS, commercial off-the-shelf software, or open source. Why just choose one? Now, that's been a hybrid approach to custom GIS applications. Just to give you a quick background, most of my work I want to show or talk about is stuff I've already done with my old job. I used to work for Forsyth County Map Forsyth. I left in October, and I work for the City of Greensboro's GIS right now. So, and I also have a handicap. I can't show any demos. And just keep laughing it up, Randall. Come on now. That's the man in open source right there. So this is going to be kind of a straightforward. I'm going to talk a lot, but I want questions because I'm going to show you some tips and tricks that maybe smaller GISs, or if you don't have an ELA or even have a lot of money for GIS, I can show you some tricks and stuff that you can get all the GIS that you're going to need, or the ability, basically using QGIS. So basically, you know, who I am, who and what the City of Greensboro GIS is, brief definitions. ArcGIS versus QGIS, can they play together? Scratch demo. ArcGIS Server, can we save money? Well, I'm sorry, ArcSDE, can we save money? And ArcGIS Server, can we save money? Now, my colleague here, he's going to be going over something that's going to be really cool too, which I'm glad I didn't even touch. But he's more of an authority of that. GIS Server. All right. Basically, who I am, I'm a software developer for the City of, Greensboro, North Carolina. Some of my duties: automate GIS processes, develop GIS applications, mainly for the web now, automate scripts, GIS add-ins and tools, and data processing. Basically, here's your stuff, sort it out and fix it, make some data out of it. That's basically what I get. I've been developing with GIS since 2006. Basically started with Engine, which back then was really cool. It was basically ArcView that you can program. And then Python. I'm always with Python. The last 7 years, I switched gears. I'm working with more of the ArcGIS JavaScript API, doing a lot more custom apps and stuff, and Python and Addins. But, and this is just quick, Steve Everett's my boss. Just some links to our website and everything. Brief definitions. COTS. You didn't know what COTS meant? This means, commercial off the shelf. Describe software and hardware products that are ready-made and available for sale to the general public. ISRI. Okay, that's the easiest thing to say. They're COTS. Open source, refers to, like my gentleman here says, refers to software that can be modified and shared because it's designed for public public use. Open source software is really good. Now, it got bad names back in the past, but right now, I'm telling you, open source is some of the greatest software. We have a lot of collegiate contributions to it. We have disgruntled employees that work for certain companies that now do open source. It is a very, very powerful piece of software. Don't ever think that open source is a bad word. It's not. ArcGIS versus QGIS, can they play together? Okay. ISRI's ArcGIS ArcMap Pro is a commercial GIS software suite for authoring, editing, and geoprocessing applications that allows you to create beautiful maps, edit and manage spatial data and perform the full spectrum, what they call the full spectrum of analysis needed to turn your raw data into valuable information. QGIS is the same thing, except what? It's open source. I was joking a little bit when I did say a full spectrum of analysis. Yes and no, but, and Randall, please chime in if I'm wrong. Esri's got probably about 170 tools, let alone you can make your custom. QGIS, counting SAGA and GRASS, probably about 400 to 500 more, which I don't get into all that analysis, but there's so many tools out there to be able to use for your analysis. And if your shop really does true analysis, there's stuff QGIS does that Esri can't do. It's just that ability. My old boss even came up to me talking about 3.6. Its new capability that he was trying to do, it now works great. ArcMap and Pro, requires a purchase license and a maintenance agreement if you want updates. Standard data sources include database, SDE, look what's in red. Read-only PostGIS. File geodatabases, shape files. You got rasters, you got web services. Web services you can do that in ArcMap, but Pro is really the best part for that. You have to jump through a couple hoops for ArcMap to do it. Geoprocessing tools. Some are based on licenses. Now, if you got basic, you can't do some stuff. You can do custom tool creations and add-ins. Yeah, I do that all the time. Custom apps. Yeah, but they cost money. If you use Engine, you use basically the Android app or the Android Studio. They cost money to develop. So if you got EDN, you could do that, but then it also costs money to run this stuff too for licensings. Creates 2 and 3D data. Yeah, Pro will do 3D. Map will never do 3D, according to Esri. Can be used for analysis on LiDAR data. Yeah, Pro can do it. And able to create web services. Yeah. Now, for QGIS, requires no purchase license and no maintenance agreement for updates. Now, if I'm right, it's what month of the year did you always go for the stable? Is it September or October?
It's February.
That's right, February. Every February they go to the new stable level. But there is versions that are basically considered beta, like the new 3.6. Let me get the cursor out there. Standard data sources include databases, PostGIS, SDE, file geodatabases, shape files, rasters, and web services. Processing tools, there's no way I can include everything. QGIS has their own. You can incorporate GRASS and SAGA. Custom tool creations and plugins. Yes. It's real easy. Custom applications. Easy and free, written in Python. So anybody can run outside of QGIS. You can just build your custom app. The only limitations I've seen when I was doing that was with tiled services. Tiled services from ArcGIS Server. It had a problem with trying to refresh them. But that was also at 3.4, not 3.6. So I don't know if that issue's been fixed. But creates 2 and 3D data. Believe it or not, a lot of LiDAR data can be processed easier through QGIS than Pro. Like I said, can be used for analysis on LiDAR data and able to create web services. Now, the web services it's going to create are what this gentleman's going to talk about next, which makes, anybody knows what WQS and WFS stands for? Those type of services? Right, WMS, WFS. Just like feature service and map service. And also Esri can read those too. So it really gives you a stronger ability. What I'll give you a quick history on this, just to be able to explain what's going on. I wrote an application a while back, which I had this showed, and I showed in presentations before. It was called Present Use Value. Back when I was working for Scythe County, the tax department needed a calculation for present use values of discounts on taxes. So I wrote it naturally for ISRI because that's what everybody uses. Well, there wasn't enough licenses out there for, say, a tax assistant to be able to run this application. So I wrote it for QGIS. Believe it or not, it was a little bit easier, especially what they call tool history. When you run any tool, a clip, you can look at tool history and see exactly what it does. And you can basically just copy that code out and put it in your code and you're ready to go. The present use did a lot of clipping and basically analysis to be able to form out. It did agriculture, horticulture, and forestry for discounts. I will, like I said, I can't use my PC. So I do have some screenshots and stuff to show later on. Now, you're probably curious, how can I pull in, which one do you see first? QGIS? QGIS brings SDE right in, no problem whatsoever. Just use the same credentials, username and password. You ready for this? It can edit SDE. Now, it will edit on the default version of it, if it's versioned. And the only other hang-up is, and it's simple to fix, I'm not trying to get too technical, but the object ID doesn't automatically get filled in because SDE triggers it. Write you a simple SQL script, add in that says, what's my next ID? Simple little line of code. And you can see and tie it to what feature you're editing to by just, when you highlight it over on QGIS, you're editing that. You can just point to that one feature. It'll go check SDE, send you what your next object ID is. You just copy and paste and put it right in there. It's just like any other part of attribute data. Now, editing, just updating, you can move anything you want across. Now, everything I'm telling you, I've tested. I have created not brand new features, but existing features with new, basically assets, new records on it, without any issues whatsoever. I think that's pretty big. Now, the project I did for the tax department, for tax assessors, all the data was coming off either SDE, because there was really no editing on it anyway, so I didn't have to worry about them messing it up, or web services, ArcGIS tiled web services. Now, inside QGIS, tiled web services for ArcGIS Server works fantastic. It's my opinion about QGIS, it can read about anything. It really goes out and can read about any form of data, or you can at least show it how to do it. So now the tax assistants open up QGIS, push one button, and they're doing the tool. Automatically goes out. I'm going to show an image of what the final form is, but what it does, it goes in, does all the cuts out the homestead, the property, turns on the aerials, does a bunch of stuff, shows all the different soils, and takes an image of it, puts it on a PDF, does all the calculations, and just makes one PDF form so the tax assistant can go, here you go. Like I said, QGIS can do all of that, and guess what? It's free. You don't have to have an advanced license to do that type of analysis. You would have to if you ran it in the regular ArcGIS world. You can start small with it. QGIS is just there to help. I did find out one thing, and Randall might laugh at this. QGIS is more accurate than ArcGIS. We're talking about maybe not as much as you think it is, but down to the thousandth of a foot, See, my calculations were going exactly. I was off 0.02 of a foot in QGIS because why? It was more accurate. ArcGIS Server or SDE goes only down to a certain accuracy. QGIS will go farther. So I'm trying to fill in space since I can't do demos. I'm sorry, but hey. Okay, ArcSDE, can we save money? You ready? ArcSDE can be installed in PostgreSQL database. Beautiful, easy to install. It's got its own installer. Users won't even know the difference. Now you're looking, okay, that's an open source database, but it can't. Basically, Oracle kind of take them over a little bit. They can cluster. I know some places right now that they're replacing their Oracle databases with PostgreSQL. I'm talking about big places that do clustering and everything else with their data. You can eliminate your Microsoft SQL Server license. You can also eliminate your Oracle license. And make it even cheaper, once you install it on a Linux server. I used the Ubuntu 14.02 server, just as sweet as can be. And the thing is, you don't have your massive overhead called Windows operating system, server operating system, which is a monster on resources. You got Linux. And everybody's like, oh, I can't do command line. Linux looks just like Windows. It all has a GUI. Even the server, you can put a GUI right on top of it if you don't want to mess with command line. It's just as easy. And here's the big note, right there, note. Anybody using big data out there? The big data store? No one's on the enterprise using the big data store from Esri? Guess what? It's a Postgres database. Jay and I had a lot of fun with that. But Jay from Esri. Because I found that out and dug into it. Yes, it's a Postgres database. Why? Because it's so efficient to hold big data. It is real efficient. It's not a lot of overhead like a lot of databases, but it's just as strong as SQL Server. It has huge libraries for spatial complications, spatial SQL. But same thing with ArcGIS Server. Can you save money? Or enterprise. If you go full enterprise, you want to keep it at home, you can install Linux. It's real easy. They do have their own install for it. And then you don't have to have that server license. You don't have to buy that monster server with 96 cores to be able to make sure you have everything running. Linux doesn't take that much. And yes, Linux, you can cluster your servers for high visibility. There's no problem with that. Now, QGIS. If you need help with open source, but other than Randall out there, he's just sitting there about to spit it out. But no, listen, there is a huge community. There's places like South Africa, that's all they use, is QGIS. It has great, great support out there on the net and training. If you like videos, Udemy. Anybody go to Udemy to get videos or anything like that? They got tons of training out there for QGIS, Python for it, everything else. Then if you do want some corporate help, you could say, one of the biggest ones in the United States is Boundless. They do have a lot of free stuff out there, but they will help you with basically as a consultant. But they want you to go full open source, including server and everything else. How much time do I got left? I'm sorry. Am I doing okay?
5 minutes.
Okay. Final words. Just like I said, I'm going to read it all out. Hey, if you got enough money for all your GIS, don't even listen to me. If you got an ELA, don't even worry about listening to me. But if you're trying to find and you're squeezing every license that you possibly can, hey, start looking into QGIS. Just for your people who want to view stuff. It is very strong. It has Model Builder, but it's not as great as Esri's right now, but they're working on it. That's the thing. They're working on it. If you want something really, really special, you can contact QGIS and they'll write it for you. They'll write you that tool. And what I've heard is not too bad either. It's pretty reasonable for that. But yeah, like I said, consider your open source. PostgreSQL for your SDE. By the way, I also had PostGIS running on it too, and I had no issues whatsoever. So I had the open source GIS database on there. Any questions, comments, or cuss words?
Could you recap your intro for folks who came in right on time, but we started 5 minutes early, so they might be confused?
Oh, okay. Basically, this is COTS compared to open source. COTS, commercially off-the-shelf software. Comparing it to open source like QGIS. You know, why can't you just live together? You can be hybrid, you know, which does work well. Most everything I showed here, I've done. Well, everything I showed here and talked about, I've done. Now, that means that there could be tons more to be able to do. But like I said, I left my job back in October and started working for the City of Greensboro. So my tasks got different. But I still play. Got to. Just one other quick thing about the add-ins. If you ever did a Python add-in in Esri, doesn't it make it a pain in the neck that you got to keep uninstalling it and reinstalling it every time you do any type of changes to it? QGIS, you don't. There's a quick little update. Push it, updates all the code. Your add-in's all fixed again. But any other questions? Yes, sir.
What online, kind of ArcGIS online, but online GIS open source?
There, I do not use any online open source, but there is, and I've never had time to play with it since I left. There is what's a good word for it? It's like an ArcGIS Online, exactly open source version. Have you got to play with that? You haven't heard about that? Yeah, GeoNet. I think that's what it is. Yeah, thank you. My old boss pointed it out to me when my time was getting slim, so I didn't have time to really mess with it, but it really looked promising. GeoNode? Okay. But so there is stuff on there. And like I'm telling you, there is tons of training for QGIS. And I'm telling you, if you worked with ArcMap and you're going to ArcPro, it's not going to be anything different. It's not going to be really much anything different, except that you're going to be saying, dang, I can connect to all this type of data I couldn't do with Esri. To connect, I'm going to say this real quick, connect to a Postgres or a PostGIS database. That database into Esri or ArcMap, you do file add, basically, and you do a selection. It's a selection query that queries the data out and puts it in. That's why it's read-only. You can do any type of analysis you want with it. You can even make it and incorporate it, if you got an ArcGIS server, into your service. Just make sure you make that as a data source in your ArcGIS server. I have done that. I have published PostGIS data and ArcGIS server. Just a mess to see if I can do it. I try to tear things up. But any other questions or anything? I do apologize with not being able to use my PC. Some quick stuff. I don't want to take your time right now. I'm sorry. This is the ArcGIS. Close that out. This is the ArcGIS version I was telling you about, the present use. You can see what it does. Huh? Oh, I'm on his slides? Oh, okay. Well, anybody wants to see it, I'll give it to them. Anything you want to see on that. But it's real easy to convert across. And if you ever got questions, I'm on CGIS, so just post me a question or ask the man right there. Oh, I know. Like I said, I got really into QGIS quite a bit going to state. I didn't go to state school, but I went there for a lot of seminars on QGIS and learned a lot. So, like I said, I do apologize. You ever seen my presentation before? No flashy demos or anything because of this. Sorry.